This meeting is being
Good. All right. Welcome everyone to our fourth Parking Advisory Committee meeting. I am Julia Gustafson, the chair of this committee and the rep for property owner. It is 4:28. We did have, and so we're starting this meeting at 4:28. We had some confusion. Our agenda said we would start at 4, but our calendar was still at 4:30. We'll make sure that future meetings start at 4. Moving forward. So let's do quick introduction of committee members first. Seth, why don't you start?
Seth Brandenburger, Business Improvement District Representative.
Joan Taylor, residential.
Sandy Shaw, business rep.
And let's do staff.
David Compke, Transportation Director.
And then we'll do guests here today.
I'm Alicia Ryan. I'm Executive Director of the Helena, the Downtown Business District.
Kelly Asham, Helena Area Chamber of Commerce.
Camera, just guest, I guess.
Public at large.
Public.
And it doesn't look like Christopher
No one else is online.
is on. Okay, I'm gonna jump off because I just was on it so that I could see him. Okay. So we have a quorum with 4 of us. So I'm gonna start, we did roll call with introductions. We're gonna start with our meeting minutes. So we have 3 meeting minutes here to approve from the last 3 meetings. Would committee members like to approve them as a slate, or do you want to do them individually? I guess they should say, are there any comments on any of the meeting minutes?
Comments?
No comments? Okay.
I
Do you
think
guys
as a slate,
Okay. Anybody want to move?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from September 12th, October 10th, and November 14th.
I'll second that.
Seth moved, Sandy seconded. And any discussion on the minutes? I don't think it really, I don't know, but just in case, any public comment on our minutes before we vote to approve them? Awesome. They were a thrilling read, I know. All right, hearing no more discussion or comment, or public comment, let's vote. And I'm supposed to do a roll call vote anytime we vote. So Sandy, what do you vote to approve the minutes?
Aye.
Okay, Joan?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
And myself, aye. All right, minutes are approved from the last 3 meetings. Okay. Let's move on to updates from city staff. David, that's you.
Sure.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, the software update, they canceled our meeting that we were supposed to have yesterday so that we'd see where they were. But that's gonna be tomorrow morning. So far as we know, we're still scheduled for January 2nd rollout date for the whole new permitting and the whole new software rollout. The car with the license plate reader was finished yesterday. Staff, we've got a little training yesterday, but we'll also have an in-depth training next week on the use of that vehicle. So they did take it out and test it out, and they recognized the license plates, but unfortunately we didn't have the weather that we were hoping for to test it out to see if they could see, the back plates with snow. But the same vehicle, similar equipment is being used. I think they said Great Falls, Missoula, Bozeman, and Whitefish, and they haven't had any issues, and they're about, I think she said 95% accuracy with that.
Okay.
The biggest thing on the accuracy that comes in is trucks or cars that have hitches that miss the hitch ball, and the license plate absorbs the impact. So where those letters are dinged or dented, that's where some of the misreads come in. That and sandwich board signs, they're, close to the curb. It's in that field of view, so it can pick up that if there's some like numbers that are in a sequence. So just little things that we'll tweak as we go along, but nothing that should be a hindrance. Talked with,
Wait, can I pause you?
yes,
So the software update, just to clarify, this is the software so that all permits will be done through license plate, not through the, okay. And so will there be a notification that goes out to all permit holders when it's updated?
there was, yes. There's that, and then there's part of our meeting yesterday was supposed to be talking about the kind of the out of the box PSA information that Passport has. So that's, we're hoping to get that tomorrow, so we can work with Callie and our PIO to just start splashing that out and getting that out to everybody.
We had prior, is it okay?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, we kind of rolled the two in, so start now with, give us a background on the PSA creation. Remind
Talked-
everybody what that is.
Talked with Callie,
Okay.
and everybody got busy. So we're gonna finish working on the PSAs in the next couple months to get those out. So the faces that they'll see in the PSAs will be the faces they see down in parking. Basically the people out on the street. Some of the PCOs, we got one retirement, and so there'll be some change over there, but majority of people that they see will be the people that they'll be dealing with. But with the new software, again, it comes with online bill pay, online permit management, online pretty much everything. So the interaction with parking should be fairly minimal unless there's an issue that we have to rectify from the back end. But that doesn't mean that people can't come and pay their bills or their tickets at the window. It's just another option for people to use to manage their parking, whatever they do with parking.
Great, so let's pause there. Would you like to add more about the PSA that the chamber's helping with?
Yeah, so that kind of came out from some original conversations from this summer, and we were in the midst of trying to change software and some changeovers at the BID. So yeah, we will work with Jake over at the city and come up with some fun things. Passport has some great info that we'll incorporate into that and really focus on the positive aspects of that. I know that we've talked a lot about, we don't want this to be negative or detrimental to any businesses downtown. We want to make sure that we're being really cognizant of that. So we'll keep that in mind as we put these out, and certainly we can get some stuff put together and then show it to this group prior to launch too, if you guys are comfortable with that.
Will that be primarily through social media, Kelly?
Yeah, socials, and then we have, we'll probably do some video too, so we'll be able to share it on our YouTube channel, and if you guys have it. And we'll use our partners too to push that out with the BID and Visit Helena as well.
And we wanted to redo like the how-to videos because we more than likely won't have any smart meters. The kiosks look different now because of all the stickers that we put on them or different faces. So it's intuitive to press the green button to go. So just trying to update things so people see what they're using is as similar as possible.
Well, isn't one of the big messages, one zone, one price kind of?
Yeah, make sure people know that. And then try to get, we'll do some how-to videos, then we can put those into QR codes too, so that if we need to do stickers on the actual kiosks, they can do a how-to video right there, so if there's any confusion.
So David, in the past, I know that people with handicap stickers, no matter where they were parked, were not tracked. Will the smart thing pick up all those handicapped people now? So they'll have to pay.
They won't be able to park anywhere for as long as they want. We're still working with the attorneys to work out that language.
Okay. Because it's a unknown line there of if you have a disabled sticker.
So the other part of that was too is currently,
We just need to make sure it's in our PSA.
if you park in
Any
a
changes?
handicap spot and you didn't have a handicap sticker,
Well, that's
we
one.
couldn't ticket that.
You couldn't?
Well, we could, but we had to ticket the person, not the car. So, over the years, it was deemed that it was in the best interest of, Helena PD, not to stand around waiting for the person to return to give them that ticket. Since then, we have, I think, found a alternative route that we'll be bringing forward to the commission in the next probably month or so on how we can better manage those spaces and some of the infractions that have seemed to have gone, unenforced over the years, just due to the fact that they were in, say, the municipal code. So the law enforcement officer had to ticket those versus a PCO. So we worked with some other cities. We worked with our city attorney's office. We're working on some language to clarify that for the public. And then it also addresses some other areas, ADA and some of these safety issues that we've been struggling with. It'll help with those as well.
So they won't get any special favors or non-payment like they do now?
Well, that's,
I mean, that's what your goal is, right? I mean, I'm just trying to get clarified.
I wouldn't say that. I said we're working on clarifying what all that language looks like.
Okay.
Other questions for David from the committee on this update section?
I'm still not quite clear about the handicap. Right now, you really can't ticket them because you have to ticket the person.
So if somebody's parked in a handicapped space, it's not displaying a placard or have license
Yeah.
plates. We can't ticket them because of an attorney opinion that said we can only ticket the vehicle, we have to ticket the person, not the vehicle.
Right.
So it's not like a parking ticket where we just go by and say, you don't have parking rights, and we put a ticket on there.
So I've
That
been
actually-
parking in those all this time and
I'm sure, some people have.
Have they?
And, that's why the issue has come up.
Mhm. And so in the future, you'll be able to, you're still waiting for the attorney to make if you could ticket the license plate in the future?
We'll be ticketing the vehicle in the future, hopefully, when we rewrite this language, so that it'll just be like a parking ticket. So if you're not displaying the correct credentials, you'll get, some form of a citation.
But there was a thing where if you had a ticket, a handicap placard or thing that they never gave you a ticket. They didn't check you, see if you had money. They didn't check to see if you had registered it in.
What about those $100?
Okay, I'm gonna
Oh,
Yeah,
bring
sorry.
us back
Okay, sorry.
to the agenda. So, other questions from committee members about the two agenda items of updates from city staff? So really, Seth, do you have any questions for David of those two agenda items? Software update
No,
and PSA update.
I don't think so. Nope.
Okay,
I think I'm good.
cool. Then to keep us moving on time, and we can come back if we wanna have more discussion on handicap parking spaces. But I wanna keep going, so we,
Is there anything else, David, that besides new updated stuff?
No, that's about the.
so we're gonna go, now we're moving to our regular items. And we're gonna have some follow-up discussion on our residential parking districts, and welcome Chris, by the way. Thanks for joining us. And it looks like we're passing out some maps.
I
So,
can share.
who is leading this section on residential parking?
Oh, sure.
Since we only had so many printed out and I'm the one that has the map, I guess
I'll present.
design. Oh, I can share.
Yeah, well, these two pictures. Look over
Oh
here.
yeah, you guys
Are you sure you don't want one?
So this map shows garages in the purple, surface lots in the sort of yellow, street parking in the bluish, and then all others in that kind of brownish color. So the all others is your residential parking districts. So, up there at Park and Hauser, you see that residential parking district. There's a couple spotted around. If there are numbers associated with those lines, that's the number of permits that have been active permits sold. So there's a couple residential parking districts that have, only one permit sold that are,
Wait, where's the residential?
So they look like
It's-
two
it's the-
lines on
it's
either
the,
side of the
This.
street, and
Okay.
they're the dark gray.
Yeah, so like these ones.
The brownish
all-
lines and they have a number over them.
Oh,
If there's a number there, that's active permits. If there's no number, that means there's no active permits. And some of these, I believe, still represent some of the districts that may have been taken off in the past. They just didn't get removed. So we just, the ones to focus on are the ones that have the numbers associated with them. So again, there's a lot of single digit residential parking districts that
Can a street be both brown and blue? Like, is this blue or is that brown?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like one side is.
I think one side is, I will have to double check.
Yeah. That's what it looks like, is one side is residential, and one side is street.
I have the PDFs, but I can't bring them up on here because
Oh,
this computer will hit me if I open my email. But like up there by Hawthorne School, there's 6 permits sold.
Mhm.
Or over here on the 400 block of North Cruise, there's 1 permit sold. So I'm sorry that this map isn't as clear as it should be for you, but I'll have the colors changed so that it looks better, and I'll send it out to everybody, and we'll make sure that the residential districts are here. But this does show, you know, the areas that have participation and those that aren't.
It's not a lot. And this is it.
There's one district over by Helena High
Oh, yeah.
on Billings.
Oh, sure.
And since it was the loaner, we felt to exclude it just because this is the main area.
Can I ask just one question on this? Do you have, availability in these areas too? I mean, what's available? Is there a certain availability or is this just?
Residential parking districts are for those residents adjacent to the district only.
How about the parking garages?
I'm gonna pause you because we're focused on residential right now.
Oh, I got you.
Okay, so any other questions about the residential districts on this map or how to read this map?
So it's a pretty small population, so it'd be pretty easy to be able to survey them. Right?
Yes, yeah.
So at our last meeting, we talked about, not we. Let's think about how to word this. Do we want to make a recommendation that transportation staff opens a specific public comment survey on the Be Heard Helena website to get feedback on the residential parking permits? That's what we talked about. So we're following up on that. So I'm asking committee members their thoughts on a survey and what we would want to find out and what would be possible action that we would recommend to be taken. Or is this,
Well,
go ahead, you're the residential.
right, but I was giving other people a chance. I would personally like to have additional information to make some decisions. Once I see how really few there are, particularly in like the residential areas surrounding. And I'd like to know if people are, I guess we wouldn't know if they're not buying them. We wouldn't know.
So
They
one of the
are, right?
problems that we have with these is our old system didn't distinguish between guest and resident permits. So
Right.
that 4 over by you,
That is her.
That could be all you.
that could be all you.
It is all me.
Thank you for your
I have the whole
contribution.
street. I own it.
Another neighbor's
But you know, that 7, that's just, you know, up the street from you, that could be just 1 or 2 households, where there's 4 or 5 parcels there.
Well, there's an apartment building there that have 2 apartments that have 8.
Right.
places.
So,
And
our
they
new
park that
software-
double.
Yeah, our new software will be able to distinguish
Across from
between
the-
the two.
Parking.
That's, some of the limitations to our old software that it just,
What is the value of residential parking? I mean, I think that's maybe, is there a need, is there a value?
$30 a year per resident. and
Right, but I mean, but
$10.
Joan's been paying for them, but obviously none of the neighbors have. She's gotten only 3 tickets that have been given there. I guess I look at this and say, is it a good thing to have residential parking permits? Is
So,
that what we need to look at more as a bigger picture of, and then work harder to get these people to engage and buy them, or is it just?
I think we need to ask them if it's beneficial to them. What's the purpose?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think about if I live up across from the Civic Center. I mean, I do live, but if you go west across Benton, I think there's some up in there that you had said because of the business that had been
The
there.
Blue Cross
before,
Blue
Cross
Shield.
Blue Shield, yeah.
so
Yes.
back in, I think it was 14, the city did an audit and there was similar where there was a lot of the parking districts that weren't participating at the level that the code, I think it's 50% requires. And so a letter was sent out. People had a chance to, say yay or nay. And there was quite a few districts that either didn't get back or just said it's not worth their while anymore.
Mhm.
But to your point, I think one of the questions, if we were to do this, would be, A, what are your expectations? Because typically these residential districts are being enforced Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, because that's normal business hours. In your case, you have weekend events and night events that enforcement isn't happening, and partially of that is just paying the overtime to a PCO to go out there, and then it doesn't solve your immediate problem. If you have people parking in front of your home, we can ticket them, but that doesn't mean they're gonna move until after they come out of the event.
Well, and if it's not being enforced, and my question really is, that's a public street. That's a public, it's not my parking area. And in other residential,
He loves you.
well, it doesn't make me happy. It probably well, anyway,
I mean, people could get exclusive use of the right of way, and that's an exclusive right of way use permit. And that has a cost associated with it, but then that space or spaces can be signed, private parking, blah, 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 tollway zone, because technically it's your right of way that you have exclusive use over. I agree with you. It's public right of way, and these residential permits had their place, I think, back in, Blue Cross Blue Shield was impacting the residential areas. I still think that they probably have some value around some of the schools that were built, back in the day when parking wasn't considered as much, like Hawthorne, Helena High, Central. I think there's some usefulness of them. But if you were to ask me, looking around to other places that have these residential parking permits, they're a lot more expensive because usually they're, depending on the expectations. And so I think with this survey, what could happen is, say in your case, if, not to put words in your mouth, but if you were to say, hey, I would love to have after hours enforcement and I'd be willing to pay more for that. Well, what is that? And then we could work that into our budget because we know that we're getting paid for that. But and we would know how many events, say, the Civic Center is having or farmers market or whatever. So that's where, it's just being able to pay for the staff time within the budget. Whereas I think some of this, because it was so localized around a couple areas in the downtown, and it was typically Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, normal business hours. That's why I can't remember how you put it last time. The parking district signs were there to discourage parking, not to.
A deterrent.
Yeah, deterrent, not to, so I think there's some ways that we can form the survey, and then have a discussion of what residential parking should look like or shouldn't look like, or evolve or
Well,
revise.
these small numbers, it's hardly probably even breaking even, is it? By the time you send a
Well, it's-
PCO
it's-
there?
Oh,
It's not, yeah.
What?
It's not even close.
Right, so I mean, I guess the question is this of any value? I mean, if it's already losing money and most of the residents aren't buying, you know, is it of value?
I think it is to the
To the
people
residents.
that
Okay,
live.
well, that's my question is to ask. I mean, we need to ask if the.
Okay, yep, Seth, now, please.
Here's what I think. I used to work at that Burlington Insurance Building, right, back adjacent to Blue Cross for 8 years. And I can tell you, yeah, there was a parking problem. Because when Blue Cross was in that building, those people had nowhere to park. And you'd watch them, they'd be moving their car all the time. They'd be out there moving their cars around. But that's changed, obviously, with Blue Cross moving out towards East Helena, and that's changed. And I think the survey will indicate that. I think most of the deterrent is actually signs, and I haven't been into these areas to see what the signs say. But, you know, if I see a sign that says, you know, you need a residential permit, I'm not gonna park there because I'm gonna assume, assuming that I didn't go to this meeting, I'm gonna assume that I'm gonna get a ticket. And, you know, when I was going to the university, if you parked anywhere in those neighborhoods, you were gonna get a ticket. And I think most people respect the signs, most people. So, I mean, maybe they don't, you tell me, but occasionally, you know, the occasional enforcement gets around. Like I
Yeah.
heard about the enforcement down by the Civic Center after hours from a couple irate people, like, well, what are they doing? They're not supposed to enforce after 5. So, I mean, I think a survey will indicate which of these areas are still of value.
And that's a good thing, I think.
But I, you know, if I own a house and I can't park in front of my house day in, day out, I'm not gonna be happy. I'd rather pay for a permit.
So I'm gonna try to keep us a little bit on time since we started late. I'm hearing that yes, the Parking Advisory Committee would like a survey specifically on residential permits. If I may add my own recommendation, I would like questions that are directed both to permit holders and both to general public, you know, that would park in these areas otherwise. Some of the questions that I heard, David, you even threw this out, you know, would you be willing to pay for additional like after hours enforcement, you know? I think I would leave it to transportation staff to think of what questions would be the most useful. Committee members, do you have any other questions that you'd recommend for the survey right now that you want to put out there?
So you're thinking about on the Be Heard survey, so we need
Yes.
to really figure out how to reach those people in that area.
Yeah, so I'm asking committee members for questions they would like to see on the survey.
Well, one question I would like to see is what's the response? I mean, if somebody continuously has people parking in front of their house and they have a permit, I assume they're gonna ask for some enforcement.
Can you phrase that as a question that would be written on the survey?
Well,
Tender
what's
plain
your,
jeopardy.
Yeah, because I was not following what you were saying.
what I'm saying is the problem areas are gonna, I would think that in the real problem areas, the city would hear from the permit holders. And so my question would be, what is your experience with parking enforcement? And have you contacted parking enforcement? Has there been a time when you felt it necessary to contact parking enforcement?
Did you follow that? David? Are you taking notes?
Yeah, we'll put something on
to
paper,
that
and I think what we'll do is we'll send it out prior to the next meeting, and then we can kind of talk about the questions, just so we have it
Let's do that.
a little bit.
So at our next meeting, staff will have suggested questions that we could look at one more time, and that would mean the survey would open after that meeting in January. And I think that's fine, because this is not super time sensitive.
Could I just
Joan, yeah, please add
add
more.
this, Joan? If you could ask the question of, I mean, I guess, are you only sending these to the current permit holders, or will it be,
It'll be on the Be Heard Helena,
oh, so it could
and
be,
so it'll be
So-
general public, but what we have found, there is a certain number of people that comment on everything. And,
Super
but,
users, perhaps?
yes, power users, but there, I think, unless it really affects that person, the majority of the people that are responding to that Be Heard is gonna be probably permit holders. But what we'll do is, we'll make sure to notify them that there's a survey gonna be out there. And that they can, it falls in line pretty well, because as we go live with the new software, the communication is, via email and through that permit portal. So we will be able to, correspond a little bit better than we have in the past versus, dialing up everybody or trying to figure out, so.
so I guess the question I would have is, you buy it, you currently have a permit, would you pay more for that permit to cover, I think we talked about the
Expand the service.
enforcement, or just to have your parking places? And how could it, what could make you feel better about this permit? Or do you really need a permit? Do you even want to have a residential parking? There's
So
like
we'll
four
have to have-
questions in there, I think.
Yeah, we'll have to have the requirements of a parking district, because
Mhm.
one of them, I think what we'll get is, yes, might be some respondents say, yeah, I want a residential parking permit in front of my house, but one of the requirements is that there's a new impact.
There has to be a reason, yeah.
So you can't just go out and ask for a permit. There has to be a recent impact that is impacting the parking. So the easiest one is the school district went out and built a new school, and now you're impacting the residents around that school. That would be a viable application. If you just want more parking because there's too many people, in your area, that's not a criteria to get a residential parking permit.
So is this survey just for residents, or do we have another question
It
on
will
there?
be for everyone.
Yeah, but I mean, should there be a question of, are you a resident? Or do you park in the resident spot? I mean, that would be another population.
Are you a current resident permit holder?
Well, also,
Yeah, I guess that's,
are you in that, are you a resident of that area?
So I'm gonna wrap this discussion up now. I don't think we need to take a vote, since we're gonna look at this again next month, but because we have public comment on the agenda at this period related to residential permit holders, any public comment or questions from the public about residential parking permits? This side of the table. Great. All right, let's move on to regular item B, new kiosk locations. So we're following, this is another follow-up item. Is this gonna be David or Chris?
Well, Chris can jump in on this because he was in, but let me put it up on the screen here.
Okay, great. So,
Always volunteer.
I know, just jump on in.
So you were Army, if you were Navy, I was never gonna volunteer, so. Where'd it go? If I can get the mouse over. Oh, yeah, new kiosk locations. I knew what we were talking about. Okay, so I think in the last meeting, all right, we talked about, where are the smart meters that we have now, the individual meters that you pay with a coin right at the spot that you're at. We've talked about that our plan was to remove, most, if not all, convert some of them if it made sense. So what you have right now is the map of where all of those individual meters are. And so they're all highlighted in a different color, and the different colors would mean sort of different things. So
Can I pause you? These are the like
The regular.
these are the old
Yeah.
bubblegum
Okay.
machine looking
coins.
ones.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1 dot is 1 meter.
So the pink ones are the ones that we would recommend moving to just 2-hour free parking, the 2-hour time limit. They're pretty well on the outskirts of the downtown area, not what we consider to be really the core. And they're not really located next to or near an existing pay to park kiosk that would make it convenient for someone to just go and pay at the kiosk if they didn't want to use the app. The blue stuff are the things that we're kind of holding on the side for the employee discounted parking discussion when we get to that. So that's pretty much everything up along Cruise.
Sorry, can you slow down a little bit just
Yeah.
because this map is a little hard for me to see? So the pink, that is mostly Benton and Neal. Can you just point to what?
Yeah,
So this is
So-
Placer,
That's Placer.
That's
Okay.
Placer,
Lawrence,
Ben slash Park, and
Yeah.
Lawrence.
and
Okay,
then 6th.
And then, yeah.
okay.
So that's, if you think of where the chamber building is, the stuff down there is right across the street and sort of surrounding the brewery.
These darker red here, which from back there look about the same color as here.
Those are signed.
These are signed 2-hour, 1-hour parking, so we changed it to a little just different, so. And then obviously the blue.
What are the orange?
The orange are meters being converted to pay to park.
And those are the spots that they're either on the other side of the street has pay to park, and for whatever reason, we didn't make those ones pay to park also.
Okay.
But there's a kiosk or there's already pay to park spots in that same general area.
All right, I'm gonna repeat everything you said. Pink, you're saying 2-hour. Orange is going back to pay to park with the Passport app.
Mhm.
Blue, we haven't talked about yet. And red is currently 2-hour and will stay 2-hour.
It's signed either 2-hour or 1-hour.
Oh, okay. It's free.
It's
sign.
free signed parking.
Red.
And I'll send this out to the group. I was telling Julia we moved today, so half the day I didn't have internet and the other half I've spent trying to dig through the pile of stuff that I have on my desk. So I'll get this out to everybody.
So let's talk about blue.
So that means that like in front of St. Peter's Episcopal Church, those bubblegum meters come out?
Yeah, that just
Yeah.
2-hour
Okay.
parking.
So sorry, what was blue?
So blue is the stuff that we've set aside for the discussion on whether we offer employee permitted parking.
That was traditionally from the previous conversations with the BID and the chamber of where a potential would be, so that's why we set them aside until we had this discussion.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how many, I mean, we can count the dots, but about how many spaces is that in the blue zone?
That's
It's a good question. I didn't think about that before the meeting, but
Okay.
I would say it's probably somewhere in the range of 70, 75.
I will not be counting the dots.
That's a lot, really.
Okay.
So there's about 175 meters total, I believe, that we
Okay.
have. So
So you would take them out and make them permit parking, is that what you're saying? Or that's what you're.
so the
asking?
blue ones, those are the ones that's what that discussion is for. So
Okay.
that area, it's a nice stretch. It's kind of, in the middle along the entire downtown area, so that, it provides sort of an easy route no matter where you work downtown to get to work if we put that for employees, so.
So right now though, we think employees are probably using that with Peters.
No, I don't
Are
think,
they? No? Okay.
so you have to feed.
No, we don't, yeah,
Okay.
we don't get a lot of activity in general on those individual
Okay.
meters.
Okay.
So,
So it's a good option, unused space.
Yeah.
There was a brief conversation about where we're gonna eliminate the 1 and 2-hour
Oh, 80,
spots.
okay.
It sounds like we're not
I'm
doing
not
that
gonna
now.
say that that's
which
100%
one?
accurate.
There's some conversation about
I don't have my.
about taking out the 1 hour and the 2 hour
They're from 60
freebies just around downtown. That's not on the block anymore, is it?
Well, I don't think we ever talked about taking out the 2 hour. Anything that's already 2 hours is gonna stay.
My question
For
was,
sure.
there was a brief conversation that we would maybe remove all all free parking, 1 hour, 2 hour, and that's not happened, right? Okay.
Not all free, no. I think
That's fine.
what's,
Oh,
what's still gonna be a topic is whether we get rid of those 15-minute signed spaces, since everything is already 15 minutes. And just extend it and say that it's all paid to park, rather than having a space that's only 15 minutes and that's it. So that one is still sort of, I think, an ongoing discussion. And then, but I don't think that we would be touching any of the current 2 hour parking anywhere,
Well, it's 15 minutes without having to go to the kiosk.
but you could also do it on the app.
I know, but I'm just saying, that's the difference.
Okay, I wanna
Yeah,
kind of solidify who's talking at one point. Okay, so Chris.
Yeah.
Have you finished your presentation on this map?
I believe we have, yeah. So those are our recommendations at the moment as far as what to do with those currently individual metered spots.
Okay, and then there are dots that are not colored. What are those dots?
So those are the actual kiosk locations.
Oh, those are
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
passport app ones. Sorry,
Yeah.
they're different colors.
So
Okay,
they used to, on the old map, they used to have a yellow triangle as the kiosks and a big blue dot for the smart meters. But when we had to do this evolution for the new passport, and previously our GIS folks went out and documented these, so instead of just two categories, it was, there's dots on there that show where the gate arms are. So there's, more categories than just the two showing on that map.
now let's have committee member questions about this map. Not ideas, but questions first. Are there any other questions? I understand it.
I understand what you've got there.
Great, all right, now let's respond. Committee member responses to the map.
Okay, well, I think, I'm glad we're talking about employee parking. I do think that it's gonna have to be a little bit more selective in that, if I owned the coffee shop and the brewery, I would want possibly some parking in front that wasn't, taken up all day by employees. So just depending on what the demand is, possibly down on Neal, where the 2 hour parking is, the employee parking could be spread out a little bit, not just on Cruz Avenue. And that's just due to the fact that some of these businesses are gonna not want possibly all those spaces taken up in front of their business all day. But I think this is a great, I'm glad we're talking about employee parking. It seems to be the big issue.
Joan,
Well,
Sure.
I'm curious who's parking there now, because from Lawrence to Sixth, there seems to be quite a bit of people parked there whenever I go. Like by the brewery and across the street.
Sure.
So, yeah, some of
Like-
that is a brewery, some of that is school, parking, people parking from the school.
Oh, that, okay.
The school used to buy our permits on 7th there where we had permit parking,
Mhm.
and they chose to negotiate a deal with the church to park in one of their parking lots during the day. But that's not to say that other school parking is not happening down on in that area. We put the 2 hour parking there at the corner of 6th and Cruz there to basically accommodate the brewery there. So lunchtime and stuff like that, there would be that. But, we don't, as far as the employee parking, we just put that up there as a discussion purposes. We can go other places, we can do other things, just with the realization that we still have to meet our budgetary requirements, and if we reduce something there, something else has to increase.
Do you have enough kiosks to be able to handle that?
That would be permit parking.
none of this would be kiosks, this would all
Okay.
be sign
Okay.
changes.
And then our LPR as it goes by would just verify if they had a permit there or not in that area. And if they don't, then they would get a ticket, and if they did, then the car would just drive on by.
Cool. So the cost to the city for these changes is obviously the removal of the meters, and then the enforcement costs for the 2 hour, but then the revenue and the enforcement costs for the possible permit parking. But the revenue would be fees or tickets for overstaying 2 hour, and then the permit revenue for new permit zones. But there is some overlap because there is already some permit parking on some of these streets.
Yeah, farther down, basically south of Broadway, there's a lot of permit parking there.
South of
business-
Broadway on Cruise.
Yeah, the business is down below there. That's a pretty heavy used, we have that parking lot. I can never remember the parking lot number. That's just, you know, on the other side of the windbag.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. that was a busy
on
parking
this
lot.
map it says 23, but I know that's the number of permits.
Yeah,
17.
that's always full.
Number one, parking lot number one is always full, and then everything on Cruise right above it is sold as permit parking because that's kind of our overflow. So that section of Cruise is not basically on the table for,
Right.
just because of the heavy demand down by those businesses.
So it looks like part of Cruise up here, and then it does look, I mean, Neil looks pretty wide open as far as if that's all going to 2 hour free, maybe that could be sold as.
Well, Neil right now is 2 hour.
But I mean, it might be a good spot. If it was gonna be 2 hour free, it'd be a good spot to sell a permit for the whole day for employees.
Yeah, I mean, we could, some of these areas that you see that we're proposing 2 hour free could theoretically be employee parking as well. If you're going to make that sort of recommendation, we'd ask that it's like a block, because the car has to distinguish between the two, and that's done by geofencing, so we have to send them a map, and so we couldn't go like 15-minute, 1 hour, 50, you know,
Yeah.
because it just
Yeah.
is, it's difficult for the car to make that transition.
Yeah.
So long runs of 2 hour, or long runs of permit, or whatever is preferable if we
That
could.
makes sense.
I see.
So I'm hearing recommendations that we like this. Seth had mentioned some 2 hour spots though in front of businesses, right, like in front of their doors. I would echo that, on the blue side, which there aren't that many businesses. It's really,
There's really Montego Coffee and North Ascension.
yeah, I guess, oh, and then you guys have a parking lot, okay. So then if we added if you made some of the pink blue, then that's where we would also want some too in front of, like Cheddar's or in that dentist office maybe, if I have my orientation right, on Fuller.
Yeah.
Cause isn't that's,
Well, so Cheddar's
It's
is
already paid for.
gonna be paid apart.
am I off by a street? I think I am. Oh, it's all park.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, it's all park. Okay, so really it's,
Oh, okay, I was looking at that wrong.
yeah,
too.
I was.
Yeah, last chance is the blank area. between
Yeah,
the
yeah,
colors.
okay.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
really it's only
That is part, yeah, okay.
Montego.
So this
and-
is last chance,
Okay.
and then this is Fuller.
Yeah. so-
Yeah.
Up to
and so
the-
that
up to
is-
Neil, and then this is Cruz,
Yeah,
Glasser, Lawrence, Sixth, and then Broadway's.
so it's a long,
All the employee parking is along Cruz.
right.
There's
And
not
then all the pink to the left side, that's on Park.
So, but, yeah, and that's actually quite a ways from, yeah, that's what makes it.
So the only businesses that we know, school, Central School here, the Holter borders this, but they also have parking there, and then Ascension
What
there.
about the YWCA, and then if they ever rent that building next?
So right now, that's YWCA right now is smart meters, so you have to plug the meter to park. We're proposing just to do that 2 hour free parking.
Yeah, so, but then there's some on Lawrence there too, right? That's,
Lawrence, this is Grand Street. the Pillar Building, that empty parking lot.
Yeah.
So that's because there's no kiosks if you're parked here and go, up to the city county building.
Yeah.
We chose to leave that as 2-hour parking. And then these ones on Lawrence between Fuller and Last Chance, for whatever reason, this piece right here got left to smart meters when everything else is pay to park. Doesn't make any sense to me. So that's why it's just an easy transition to pay to park there. So we're really not adding that much. There's 2 spaces here, maybe 3 spaces on this side. I think there's 8 maybe spaces, 6 or 8 spaces there. So it's not a lot that we'd be adding to pay to park. There's more 2-hour free parking being added.
I mean, and it's all the inside core prime located parking that's getting converted to the pay to park in the areas that already have pay to park.
Yeah, okay.
So I just want to reiterate my recommendation and then move to public comment. I do think there is value in having one section of those 2-hour paints on park as an employee parking. So there's both employee parking on the east and west side of downtown. And so we could look at what block makes the most sense. But that would be one of my recommendations there. And then my question would be, would this follow the same street permit cost that you've already proposed? Or is it open for discussion that we would have a second rate for certain zones that would be even cheaper?
So again, back to our comments, back to the BID and the chamber, and when, the creation of this committee, that was one of the things that got basically kicked down the road until this committee got formed, so that discussion of what those rates would be, even though we already have an AM, midday, and PM, basically 4-hour permit. So
I have a comment on
County
that, and
audits.
that
County.
is generally when you
Do you have
when you have one of these businesses downtown, your employees are working they don't always have the same shift. They don't, I mean, I'm sure some do, but most of them work various shifts during the week. Like they might work 8 to 12 one day, and then the next day they're working till 1 to 5 and so the $30 permits in that case are probably not working for most employees downtown.
So this is the old system.
Yeah,
The new system would basically give you 4 hours of parking.
4 hours of parking in
And
one
then
place for 30.
As the LPR went by, it would log you in because you have a permit. And then if you're still there 4 hours later, 5 hours later, that's when it would.
I see. That's an improvement.
That would be
That's huge.
appealing to,
So not the AM PM permits.
Right.
Those are, the AM PM permits are still gonna work the same way, so 8 to 12-ish, 1 to 5-ish is what you get for those permits. But I think what we're talking about is on the employee side, if we made them like a 4-hour employee permit,
Right.
it would just be a 4-hour block. When you
Yeah.
first get clocked, you got 4 hours from that time on.
Yeah. So then the question is, the question is the cost for employees. I mean, I assume that my thoughts on this were that somebody would have to prove that they were an employee downtown by bringing like a pay stub to the parking office. In that case, they would be given a discounted parking permit, either 4-hour or full day. And the discount would mean they would have to park in the designated employee area. Now, trying to come up with how many employees are downtown and how many would buy permits and how much that would cost is kind of the
So there's a
tricky factor there.
There's a few other factors that need to be considered, because if you open this up to every employee, then every employee can go park in, we'll just say the Blue and the along Benton there, instead of parking, someplace else. So we need, what your the chambers, BIDs, thoughts are on sideboards. So who qualifies for this employee discount? How long are they? Are month to month? Because from what we heard from a lot of the business owners, they have a high turnover rate. So would you want the other thing is these permits are the way the permits are going to be moving forward, they're managed by the business or the person. So it wouldn't be they wouldn't be them coming down to the city getting a permit. The business would create their account and manage their permits through that. So if they had 10 employees, they could have 10 permits. And how and who pays for those permits, obviously probably the business would have to front the cost and they get the money from their employees or whatever. But the way this permitting system works now is you as a business log in, create your account, you purchase whatever permits you want, whether that's just for you, or multi-lot or whatever, but these employee permits would fall into that category. It's a category that hasn't been created yet, but that would be one that as you went in there and you picked what kind of permit you wanted, there would be employees. And then the business owner or I guess the brand permit holder, whoever that is, manages those so that as their employees buy new cars or employees come and go, they can go in and delete the people on and off of their permits or change the license plate because you left and Joan came on to work. That way that the license plate would be read and they would have parking rights.
Okay, I want to pause and clarify when we're talking about employee parking. I think this is shorthand for like hourly employees, retail, and food service. Is that kind of what we're talking about here? Not professional offices, or is it? Because it's kind of like that's the whole parking. That's all the parking downtown. If it's just general employee. So
we don't want to tell you all what
I know.
it should be. But that's what the committee is for, is what do you want it to be for?
Let me ask Seth, when you say employee parking, what were you thinking in your mind?
Well, I run a restaurant downtown. And I can tell you, A, the employee turnover was very high. B, everybody parked right in the parking lot where customers should be parking. And C, we were constantly fronting them the money for their parking. And they were constantly whining about their tickets were costing more.
Okay, so you were in your mind, you're thinking
Yeah,
service industry, hourly working, irregular hours
but
is
that
maybe where this discussion started.
that
Okay.
is a
6
yeah,
hours
it's
or
a-
less employees or 4 hours or less employees.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is really tricky because if you
So I'm gonna
if you have all the
pause-
lawyers and the realtors and everybody else down there,
Yeah,
all of a
and it's-
sudden,
The
Fun,
conversation
yeah.
was based around like part-time employees, not full-time
Yeah.
employees.
Okay, so let's pause and open up to public comment since we have some of these reps here. And maybe you guys, maybe Callie, you can start since you've been part of these discussions before, just for context for the rest of the committee on this idea that's been stewing for a while.
Yeah, so that was probably the biggest feedback that we got when we held the open forums back in, I think that was like July, when we did the first one. Employee parking was really the biggest thing. And then on the couple of speaking engagements I did, Hometown Helena in particular, employee parking was probably the biggest concern. And it was really, I think when the BID and the chamber and the city met back, it must have been late August, when we had that meeting to really talk about the changes that were coming and sort of some of the agreements that were made. Employee parking was a consideration, but we knew we couldn't do anything until this committee was formed. So I think all of the stakeholders in those conversations were really forming those opinions around part-time employees and people who were working like a 4 to 6 hour shift. And I think that designation will be important when you're putting this forward, because I mean, for example, we're permit holders at the chamber and all of my employees have permits. But we wouldn't expect to get the discounted rate because they're there for 8 hours a day. And so I think that will have to be something that we're really clear on going forward, especially because there will be certainly pushback from businesses that are paying full price for permits versus folks that are going to be getting discounts. I think it's also important from my standpoint, in one of the conversations we had, that the businesses are who are responsible for managing these permits. Because of turnover, I think that, I mean, there are, you know, it's 2024, there's 1,000 ways you can deduct something out of someone's paycheck. So if the business wants to turn around and pass that cost on to the employee, that's a business decision. But I think that business should be the administrator of those permits. And I think that was one of the big conversations we had, because you don't want just employees coming into the city or getting discounted parking and not, you know, leaving a job and then not obviously paying, that type of thing. So I think I covered everything we talked about in those meetings. But yeah, it was really about, and Cruise was identified as the most easily accessible. I like the idea of having both east and west employee parking. From a business standpoint, you can access downtown easily from both Cruise and Park. They're all walkable.
All downtown is.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, you can park at the Chamber Walk anyway. I promise.
So what you're saying is we'd have to limit this to like 6 hours in a day. It could not be an 8-hour day. Because that would,
Well,
I think
the
if you're a
problem-
full-time employee, then the expectation is
You
you
should
should be
pay.
buying a parking
Yeah.
permit. I mean, that's my.
no,
humble
I
opinion.
see the issue. I mean, you'd have to do that. I just,
Well, I think what we're saying is, we've listened to people saying they have short-time employees that need a
Yeah.
discount.
Mhm.
So I think we could justify taking the blue and saying, if you're willing to park in the blue, we could give you $20 instead of $30, whatever that is, or 25 instead of 30. So if they went, well, for $5, I'm gonna go park in a lot closer or wherever I can do. But if the business person's smart, they can say, look, come 10 minutes earlier, I bought you parking in the blue zone. And you use it, you got 4 hours, tell me when you're gonna be here, and you can adjust it, whether you have to adjust it weekly,
No,
or, I mean, I'm talking to Seth on his thing. But
so, yeah, the permits though, for you wouldn't have to adjust. It would be, that person would give whatever we decided on, 4 hours of parking or 6 hours of parking. So as the
Right.
LPR went by,
But what I'm saying is, can we discount the blue? So it's a little different than me just parking in the 6th Street garage,
yeah,
so that the owners can say, hey, there is some designated parking for employees that work downtown. And you have to walk a little bit. You know, you don't get to have great parking at a discount just because you only work 4 hours a day.
Right, and
So, yeah, so we're saying, yeah, we can get you that. And then if the business decides they don't want their people walking that far, or that person doesn't want, then that's an internal business thing.
right.
And they get on the
but
app.
it's a business decision. And I think it's a great educational opportunity to really say, like, you don't want your employees parking in lots where your customers could park. Like, this is an opportunity for you to increase revenue, because there's opportunities now for folks to get closer to your business. And that's some of the feedback we get from customers who are like, I don't want to walk, you know, but as employees, you know, we walk, you know, that's part of doing business.
Or we
downtown.
pay more if we
Yeah.
don't wanna walk.
Or if you don't want to, yeah.
The short time that I have been at the BID, it's, the feedback I've gotten is cheaper employee
Mhm.
parking. And from the people that I've talked to that have given me their feedback, it's hourly 4 to 6 hour employees that I think would benefit. And you're right, Callie, this would be a perfect opportunity to show them, we heard you, we did this, and you know, let's keep the business parking open for customers. You've got a place to go. It's a little bit cheaper. It's a great idea.
Seth, could I ask how many days a week typically does, you know, a part-time employee work?
You know.
Monday through Friday, when during enforcement times.
Some of them are working 6 days a week. Yeah, I think,
I'm just trying to show that when
We
we
have
get,
employees that work one shift a week
yeah,
at the distillery, you know, so it's, and the same for the breweries. They
I was
have-
just trying to, when we go out to this, to show, you know, if you're parking there 5 days a week for a month, that's 20 days. You're basically paying a buck and some change for parking a day.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
I mean, right now, they're only paying, you know, buck and a half.
But Seth could buy a full permit and put 3 employees on it if he spent his little time figuring out who that
Well,
was.
you can't, cause it's,
No, you can. You
Yeah.
can you could buy one permit and have 3 different employees on that permit.
With a license.
But
License, yeah.
if 2 employees come to work at the same time,
And the
the
car
first
drives
employee
by.
goes by and say, okay, you have parking rights. The second one
Okay.
goes by,
It's a ticket.
ticket.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
and the first employee could be parking downtown doing other business and get read by the meter and kick the other employee out. They would have to park in a different zone during that day?
It would know by the zone.
Yeah, if they're not in the right place for the permit that they have, then the system will default to whatever zone they're in.
Default to pay.
So if they're in a pay to park area or a timed area,
Oh.
just because they have the permit, it's not gonna make a difference if they're not in the permitted area.
But a business owner would have to work with their employees to say you cannot park, if they're sharing permits, like if there's multiple
Right.
license plates, not to park in
Mm-hmm.
that
Or
zone.
not schedule them at the same time. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the
that's-
difference.
I mean, you
Yeah,
can take
no,
your,
right.
you can take one permit and put your Tuesday and your Thursday and your Friday person on that permit.
Right.
I know, but your Tuesday person could park on Friday in that zone, and then that would cause your Friday person.
Well, you'll
to
get
a
one ticket and then you'll learn
No.
how to manage.
Anyways,
Yeah,
I'm getting
yeah.
us off, I'm doing
Yeah.
what I'm trying not to do, okay.
But if you walk
Let's,
into.
wait, committee
yeah.
members, we were open to the public at this point in the agenda.
One thing that I could get you guys that might help for some data is we recently just expanded some of our Placer application. And we can run employees now, so it'll
I don't know what
judge.
that is.
Placer is a data system that we use that tracks, folks
Brother.
via apps,
Oh, that's what
on
you
insurance.
mentioned.
Yeah, and so we have some availability now, we can actually track employees in an area. So I could get you guys some numbers of how many employees are actually in the district at a time. and I
That
can
would be
send
great.
out.
I'm scared of you now.
I know, everyone should be.
Big brother.
So I wanted to
Maybe.
mention.
I don't
Tell my-
have that, it's really not as cool as I
Um,
make it sound.
Committee members, it is 5:35. We started a half an hour early. We were scheduled to end at 5:30. I'm just gonna take a pulse. Are we okay to continue with a couple more agenda items for committee and staff?
I'm okay.
All right, so we are in the public comment on this residential, or excuse me, these new locations.
We're on B.
We're on D.
Employee.
Yeah, we're on D.
Yeah, we kind of skipped through.
We skipped around. Cam, you've been sitting for quite a while. Do you have anything you would like to say right now?
No, I like what you guys are talking about. I'd like to see, sounds like you guys have a lot of info, but I think if you guys did it, I don't know if you guys can do it, but got more info from the businesses, maybe just go survey them and say what would work best, 5-6 hours, which I think to me is very, cause I'm thinking about the hours. I mean, some of those stores open at 10, like Soul Sisters, Fire Tower opens at 7. Their hours are a little different. So 5-6 on both ends would cover both of their shifts probably. And it would work. And I just think I like what I'm hearing. I like it on both sides. I think it would really help. And I think it would be a very positive thing for them. And like you say, they'll learn to use it because it is gonna help them keep employees and it's gonna help put spots in front of their businesses. So I think it's a very positive thing to do.
Okay, I am thinking that next agenda, we wanna follow up on the residential, and I think we're gonna wanna follow up on this at the next agenda too.
What information would you like on this employee?
I would like the map updated and maybe sent in advance so that we could respond with some numbers on there. And maybe a proposal that the committee could respond to. Because one of the options, or one of the things that I'm hearing needs to be clarified is if there's a zone that's cheaper than the current street permits, or are they the current street permit $60 a month? Or this 4-hour or less idea that could be in those current streets. So I want it
We'll try to get you.
written out so we know what we're talking about, so we can respond. So like what makes sense for transportation that then we can respond to.
Do you want our recommendation on the pricing of these employee permits? Is that what you're saying?
I want Yes, I want something that we can respond to. So if your recommendation is that there's not an official or not a cheaper option, we can start there and we'll probably say we want a cheaper option.
For employees.
For,
Yes.
yeah, and I'm not loving the use of employees. I think we need to use the word part-time employees or something. If we're looking, I think I'm hearing that we want a discounted option that is not prime parking downtown, that is for part-time employees in the area. Because really, except for the small amount of or people that live in the Placer building, almost all these permit holders are employees in one
Let us-
regard.
I have a little notion, but we'll ask tomorrow if we can do that. Maybe the employers that have these part-time employees could, submit to the BID or the chamber. And I don't want to say certified, but they could verify that they're a business like a restaurant or something that has these part-time positions. Because really, anybody could go out and create an account in our system and say, I want employee parking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we could maybe make a work.
So I could, so they have to come into the office to get these permits anyway. So with the new software, you cannot sign yourself up for what's gonna be classified as a group permit, which is what these would be. If you want a group permit, you have to do it in the office. So I'm not too worried about anybody just being able to buy them.
Well, but on the portal, they have to, the employer has to do all the permitting and manage their.
Right, once we set it up.
Right.
But we have to set up the group stuff
So
ourselves.
business makes a group.
So the business would have to come to the parking office in order to get these permits initially. From there, they can manage them on their own.
But
And what I'm thinking is we might be able to, we probably won't, but we might be able to use the classification on business licenses for the type of businesses.
Or the chamber of BID could go through the list of businesses downtown and just make a little note for us on a kind of quarterly basis.
I don't,
But if
yeah,
our goal is to manage parking, what does it matter if someone who lives in the Placer buys one in the blue zone and gets a discount and decides to walk and scrape their car?
Because they're not part-time employees. That's the
But-
whole point of this.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is to manage parking to get people to park further out so that customers can park further in. So for all we know, that person is sitting in a prime spot in a lot all day long or whatever. I mean,
Right,
I
but
just
like-
wondering,
Your example, the Placer, Jackson is permit parking only, the whole garage, because of the high demand for permits. So that's where the residents of the Placer, that's where businesses, they get that choice of the, and the problem is that these permits will only be good for 4 or 5 or 6 hours. So
Right.
if they were to park their car there all day, they're gonna get a ticket, So I see what you're saying where you
well, what
try
if I'm a
to,
library user? What if I'm a customer at the library and I wanna? well,
the
of course, yeah.
library lot, you keep bringing, the
Yeah.
library lot is 1 hour free.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just thinking if, I mean, people will figure out a good system.
Yeah.
And you'll
Okay.
figure out, I think you got a good spot, they have to come talk to you.
Yeah.
Is it worth surveying to see like what's the average hours people are scheduled?
Yeah, so I'm hearing that we need more data and we need something to respond to in our next meeting. So, however that looks for, I'm sensitive to this committee not making directives, but asking for recommendation, or, I'm trying to figure out how we work together the most efficient way.
so I guess I
So
would
I
ask,
think,
sorry.
yeah,
I guess I would ask if there was some sideboards that the committee can think about for the next meeting.
yes, maybe we
And
can,
then my one that I just thought of is how do we deal with, say, remote workers that come in, and work maybe 2 or 3 8-hour shifts, or only come in, are they gonna qualify in these business professional jobs or are the service oriented jobs? So that's.
yeah. So in my initial instinct, looking at this and looking at the map, is that we take the type of employee out of the picture, and it's really that we have the fanciest level of parking for $95 a month. You get to park anywhere you want, whenever. And that there's the cheapest option that is 4 hours or less in certain areas, probably park and cruise for $25 a month for maximum 4 hours at a time. And the type of user is irrelevant, that we just have a very tiered parking system. Well, actually, the most expensive is to pay by hour wherever you want downtown. So that's number one. And then the very cheapest option to park downtown is to park in these 2 specific zones for 4 hours or less for whatever price we want it to be. And then we don't have to worry about the user. So that would be my recommendation. And that when you look at the parking, and then for BID and Chamber, they can say, great, you need affordable employee parking. It's these 2 zones for $25 a month.
Yeah, I think that's.
So it's not necessarily employee parking, it's just, this is a,
It's the cheapest parking.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. so it's-
For
You
that.
have to do that. You
Yeah.
don't want to discriminate.
No, and you don't wanna get into policing,
No.
you know.
Well, and
no,
what's, you know-
I worked an extra half hour.
Well, if I work retail versus I work at a half-time in a lawyer's office, I don't wanna be, considered, I mean,
Yeah, no, you
Yeah.
can't
I
discriminate.
remember you guys shot me down when I had that idea, anyone could park in the blue zone, as long as they pay.
The trick of all this is to try to figure out the numbers so that you guys don't go, parking budget doesn't.
Well, and the other trick is for everybody to know that as the car goes by, it doesn't discriminate either. If you're in violation of your parking rights, you're gonna get a ticket. And the appeal process is gonna be a lot more limited than it has been in the past. There's gonna have to be a really good justification for why you got the ticket and why you shouldn't have to pay it. So we're hoping that the enforcement will help with the parking behavior and push people to the appropriate areas that they are gonna be parking.
So, and I'll, to Seth's point, I don't see there being a big financial impact to us offering the discounted parking in the places that we've identified.
Yeah.
Because those meters don't make a lot of money right now.
Right,
Yeah.
I think you'll make more money.
It's, we may make more than what we make on the meters at the end of the day. The impact is gonna come from the people that leave their current permits at the full price and just buy these ones. So there may be some people that are working just those part-time things. Maybe they have 2 or 3 part-time jobs and this is just one of them. So they may have a full-time regular permit that they're now not gonna pay the $80 or whatever a month, and they're only gonna be paying the 25. That's gonna be the impact to us. And there's not a really good way for us to estimate that.
Because you could oversell these. So we'll have to think about what the cap would be on
Right.
these zones.
Yeah, and we have those too, in pretty much all of our lots, garages, the street permit, parking, all that stuff. We have maximum amount of number of permits available. And depending on the number of space, we've given it X percentage over that to oversell in there. And so we would do the same thing with these areas. There may be 100 spots available for this rate. And we may let the system sell, 115 or 120.
But if they're only, that's where the time limit's gonna depend.
Right.
If they're 4-hour permits or less, then it's an 8-hour enforcement day. You could sell.
We can be a
200.
little more liberal with
Yeah,
the
but if they all work
overselling on
for-
these ones.
Right, that's,
Noon to
Yeah.
4,
so
yeah.
there-
that's it's gonna-
I think what we do is we'd have some training so that we look at some of the bigger purchasers of the permits and say, let us tell you how you can use it. You can use it to your advantage as a full or part or hybrid work or whatever. So let them know that they have a chance to adjust their things, and maybe if they're not spending a ton of money, but maybe they might spend more because they may be reimbursing people doing $1 on the street. And the other piece is, what about on Park across from the 6th Street Garage? Doesn't get much. Can we make that one of the blue zones?
maybe we could, it's already permit parking, we just have to see how many permits we have sold there.
Yeah.
We have a lot of areas, to be perfectly honest with you, that are basically 100% sold, and you drive by and you're just like,
Yeah.
Or is
Well,
everybody?
well, you also wonder, like, if you offer that, does that take the pressure off the residential area? If I can park on Park, right across from your garage, on 6th Street Garage, and not be up in Benton, that's gonna take some pressure off. I mean, that street's empty these days. Between Broadway and
I
6th.
don't
Park,
disagree.
yeah.
you know,
But I mean, but maybe we could find some locations like that that has, this is a little further away parking, but you will, you can have the 4-hour discount permit.
Yeah, we'll run some numbers and we'll see what we can.
That would get those people out of other places.
Chris, well, I guess both of you, can you have 2 types of permits in the same zone? Can the machine read that? So it's like zone A and you can either have a 4-hour
Kind of,
permit or 8-hour
because we
permit.
have the multi-lots. So the multi-lot
Oh.
kind of is our
Mm.
more than one permit in the same area. But not,
We'd have to
I
designate
don't
two
think
different
so.
permits. We can ask tomorrow.
Alright, well, that would be something to figure out before next month, that if these zones we're talking about can have both 4-hour and 8-hour permits in them.
Right.
Is my
I-
process.
we should be able to, it's just a matter of us giving them, it's just another layer on the map, basically.
Yeah.
It says this, this rectangle of this area on the map can support this type of permit or this type of permit, or, so it should be possible, but yeah, we'll check.
Alright, I am going to wrap that agenda item D up, say we're done. And we're gonna do our check-in on annual report recommendations. This is our standing item for things that we would want to officially bring to the commission. The items that we have talked about in the past were about how information is shared relating to parking changes, some concerns about that. Residential parking zones, we've already talked about that. Our discussion last month kind of, I'll just finish here. Evaluate the kiosk locations, especially related to parking garages, and define and review type of parking users in relation to type of parking available, and then also tourism data and experience of tourists. So those are kind of vague statements, but things that this committee has brought up that we're thinking about in recommendations to the commission. Committee members, would you like to refine any of those now? And we'll bring them up again each meeting. And maybe we need to change the tone of them to be more recommendation based, not so much agenda item based. Committee members nod if you're following what I'm saying, because that was a little bit of word soup.
Have we written those down? And I mean, I'd like to have those
So
sent out, and so we can refer to them each. You have them on your phone, but I don't. think
I wrote
actually
them
wrote
down last time, and I wrote them down in preparation to this meeting, listening to the recording of this meeting.
Mhm.
I don't have the minutes in front of me right now to see. I don't think they're in the minutes kind of more vague than that. So to answer your question, yes, let's get them written down.
Just so we have them every meeting.
Yeah, until we're ready to vote on them.
Right.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring up one thing. So we're getting into the budget process.
Yep.
So any
Now's our time to get involved.
fiscal recommendations, because you'll send them to the commission will send it back through the city manager to us. And then we'll have to present back to this committee and to the commission on our findings.
Mhm.
So, not to say that is gonna take a long time, but it will take some time. I would say last year we met with the commission on our budget like in April.
Yeah.
So I would say that we probably want you guys to be able to send any budgetary impact recommendations to the commission, like maybe February,
Yeah, I'd say the February, at the latest, the March meeting.
because otherwise we won't have enough time to get back on the agenda to talk to them about what our findings are for them to say, yeah, go ahead, or come up with options for this committee.
So if we meet the second Thursday in February, can we vote on those then, and then it would go to the admin meeting the following week? that
They would go,
timing
so
work?
the way they do is they go to the commission and the commission chooses to bring them up as a commission topic or to direct city staff.
But would it be an admin? It would be an admin meeting.
Not
Well,
necessarily.
I'm just trying to think of the time if we need to do it in.
It would
because our
prob-
meetings fall in the middle of the month.
it would probably be an admin meeting if they wanted to put it on the agenda. So it would be, yes, you would send it to them by February. They
By
would,
February 1st is what I'm trying to clarify.
oh, no, I think
After
in
February.
February.
After
is
our
fine. The
February
February
meeting,
meeting
okay.
is fine.
Okay.
So if you could vote on it at the February meeting of what you would like to recommend as far as, significant budgetary impacts, then that would be enough time for them to see the recommendation and decide if they wanted to direct the manager to direct us
Okay.
to talk about it in an official meeting.
So if we vote on it in the middle of February, it should give you guys enough time, depending how, obviously we can't control how the commission works. Okay. So committee members, let's, I'm opening the floor to you committee members to refine your recommendations, state other recommendations, and I will get these typed up to be, so we can respond to them in our next agenda and add more.
Can we have a breakout by hour with these lots per month? So we could I like when someone was saying, premium, it's $1.25 an hour or whatever.
Okay.
And I'm off there. So anyway, when you bring back, when you're doing the finances. I don't know.
Okay, I'm
I
tracking
could.
now.
Yeah, just so that we can sell it. So I mean, I think it was Julie who just said, we got the premium spot. That's this one. We got first, you can pay for $1 an hour on the street at the meters, or you can get a better deal at $95 a month if you're in this garage. And so we can kind of see, so we can teach our people
Okay.
the values of where they can park and the businesses. That might be easier just budget wise too for a business.
Okay, so that's a great idea, Sandy. I'm just processing how to word that, because that's a little bit just like,
Well, they were gonna update, they're gonna
Communications
update
and
this.
so in this annual report recommendations are things more
Oh, sorry,
like,
yeah.
we think
Sorry,
the
I
city should
jumped.
get rid of residential parking
Yeah.
permits.
Yeah.
Or we
Oh,
think
yeah.
there should be more 2-hour spots, or we think,
I forgot what the
Yeah,
annual
at
report.
this point,
Yeah.
we just support a survey
Yeah.
to determine whether or not all these residential streets or districts are necessary.
great, that's a great recommendation. And to reword it, we're supporting looking at the residential districts and getting for more information on,
Exactly.
okay.
At this point, as of today, we also support the establishment of an employee reduced rate parking areas for part-time employees. Less than 8 hours per day.
We're not referring to it as employee.
We're just
anymore.
doing-
Or just
you're
reduced
right.
rate.
Reduced rate,
we'll have the rate structure from premium to.
Yeah.
yeah.
Reduced rate
That's
parking
a good-
area
Yeah,
in context for part-time employees,
well, no,
For
we're not
everybody.
even, we're not even in,
for everyone.
Yeah, it's a
In
menu.
response to,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
you go, in response to the
Yeah.
request
Yeah.
for reduced rate employee parking.
my recommendation is about a need for improved communications and information availability about parking downtown. And I know I need to wordsmith that, and that's kind of what Sandy's getting at, and we've mentioned a couple times that it can be kind of confusing for users. And there's obviously, and I know a lot of this work is in progress, but that's an area I think that would alleviate a lot of pain, is some better, easier to understand information.
And we're supporting the social media, chamber, EID.
With two audiences,
PSAs.
we have customers that we're putting this message out to, and we also have employees that, we have users and livers or whatever, I don't know what. Does that make sense? And stakeholders, so yeah, so.
So I think the two are getting mixed. One was the PSAs that we were doing with the chamber in conjunction with the DID, and the other one was getting the survey out to folks.
I'm saying with the PSA stuff, we need to keep in mind, we have I don't want to go downtown because I have to pay for parking. And we also have the employees saying, I don't want to work downtown because I have to pay for parking. And this is we have two audiences. We have the employers, and the goal is to also make bigger spots for the customers.
So we already have
Yeah.
a lot of those.
No, I think you're doing, I'm just saying, as we're doing this, as we go through and we're making maps of what it costs to do that. Keep in mind, we have 2 customers. 2 audiences that we're trying to deal with. Maybe 3 if they're living, if the residents matter.
Joan, anything to add?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Let's, now we're moving to next agenda. We have on our agenda, we had proposed, talking about enforcement fees in January and tourism in February. I'd like to move those back both a month, since we have 2 big follow-up items in January. So let's add enforcement fees and rates move that to February. And then tourism
So-
specifically in March.
Just to,
Yeah,
as far as fees go, that'll have to be, not have to be, but that should be part of the recommendation of budgetary impacts.
oh, if we wanna
So
make a
you for sure, if you
recommendation.
can move them to February, but you for sure wanna make a decision on what to say about them in
Okay.
February.
Well, then, let's keep, you're right, good point. Let's have that as a new agenda item, a presentation from staff on how enforcement fees and rates work right now in January.
It'll be pretty simple. I don't think that's a huge discussion.
Well, and how much it affects your budget too? How much of those fees are your budget?
Yeah, but we wanna have a
Technically, all of them.
presentation and respond to it and ask questions. when you
Yeah, we
understand it. So
can-
yeah, let's make that.
I think we could cover the whole thing. We could give you the presentation on what are the fees, how do they work, and we could also give you our proposed rate changes.
Oh, you have proposed rate changes.
We could by the next meeting, sure.
Just for.
I'm real good at stuff, man.
We throw numbers out.
Okay.
No, I think, like I said, I think we're trying to simplify the enforcement side of this. So I don't wanna demean the conversation, but I don't think it's gonna take up as much time to say the employee, the whole rate structure discussion.
Will this be in writing, you'll make a written recommendation on the fee structures and all that?
So I think what our plan, we can kind of combine this with the proposal that you asked for already. We can give you, here's the current rate structure, right, from most expensive to least expensive.
Right.
And then we could, right next to it, have, here's what we propose for our upcoming budget to change rates to.
So then I can look at it and decide if it's cheaper to get a ticket than to pay for a permit. That's the other.
Sure could.
Yeah, I mean,
But will we get that on paper before the next meeting, so we can look at it before we come?
Yes. I'll make sure that it's done in time to post it with the agenda.
It has to be
Great.
posted publicly, not just.
Yeah.
to us, but yeah.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so that's a lot for January, that we're gonna revisit residential parking survey, that staff is bringing a draft survey to us. We're gonna revisit this discounted parking area. So that will have an updated rate sheet, and then we're gonna talk about current fees and possible new fees.
and is the chamber gonna help with that survey push, to push out the information?
Happy to.
That there's a survey cut. Once the survey is made, maybe use their push.
Yeah, all right, so we're talking about future agenda items, so we'll keep tourism as agenda item in February. Are there any other big agenda items that we wanna look ahead to add to March, or areas of parking that we haven't talked about? Never mind, I'm not seeing anything jumping out right now.
What do you 2 guys have coming up?
Sorry, this is for committee
Oh.
members first,
Oh,
'cause we're on that piece of the committee members, any? Okay. Then, now I'm gonna do a quick 6:02, we're gonna do any other public comment. And which then you could answer the question that Sandy asked, if you have things that you would like us to have on future agendas.
What specifically tourism stuff do you guys want to know, and I'll run it?
Just numbers, people coming and
Visitor
going,
and stuff?
and duration.
Oh, got it.
Well, the committee
Just like
wanted
we
to
did
talk about
for-
the tourist perspective when it comes to parking too, and tourists as parking users downtown.
I've got lots of feedback.
We should make Andrea come.
I was gonna reach out to her and ask if she could come too,
Yeah,
but maybe you
We'll
could
just,
get it
her and
on
I will
her.
just take
Yeah.
team it. Yeah, that's fine. I'll take care of that.
Other public comment from our patient public?
Cam.
No. All right,
I'm good.
so, I think I decided we don't have to do a roll call vote, but our next meeting will be January 9th at 4 p.m. David, will you make sure to update your calendar invite?
Yep, I got it on my first note.
Remind me
Okay.
when we go on.
All right,
And I'll be gone.
and Joan will be gone.
Chris
Okay.
needs to
Please
read.
excuse me.
Actually, I think we just need 3 for a quorum, so Chris is gone. But, all right, any committee member want to move to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, Seth moves. Any second?
I'll second.
Joan seconded. Vote to adjourn. Sandy,
I'm I.
Joan,
Aye.
Seth.
Aye.
Oh, I agree. Meeting adjourned
Thank you, everybody.
at
for
6:03.
coming together.